Hello everyone, and welcome to this cooking get together. We have a great crowd together, and I'm excited that we're going to be making mushroom crepes with a white bean filling. So let's go ahead and get started. But I want to start in an unusual way. Instead of just getting right busy and going ahead and chopping the onions and doing the mushrooms, what I want to do is start with a concept that can really help make your cooking more successful and more enjoyable, because this is a cooking class. And so the one thing I want to talk about is the whole concept of the part of cooking that happens before you ever even come in the kitchen. And that's what I call the getting prepared to cook part. And there's two aspects of it. One is stuff that goes on before you even come to the kitchen. And that's the part where, and we've done most of that. Well, in fact, we've done all of it. We've decided what to eat. You've shopped for the right ingredients. You have the recipe. You've got your equipment. And you've made sure that everything's in your pantry that you think is in your pantry. So that's all the getting prepared to cook part. And why I emphasize that is that so many people don't realize that that's a part of cooking. And that's what makes you successful. Too often we want to race in the kitchen and just start eating and we're hungry. And so then that's when we end up frustrated and disappointed, and we end up with food that often doesn't meet our health needs. So that's why I wanted to bring that up. And then there's one other aspect of the getting prepared to cook part of cooking, that is that what we do once we get to the kitchen. And instead of slinging around pans and starting with our chopping and dicing, we want to do two things. And the first of those is to review the recipe. And I know, like I say, it's really tempting to just get started, but it's really important to go ahead and review the recipe and see what's your game plan, where are you going, instead of just myopically following instruction after instruction without a sense of where you're going. So in this recipe, you'll notice that I've written it in 5 rows. And the point of that is that each one of those rows tells you a part of the recipe. And I think you've all gotten that because you got the mise en place list and you've set up your kitchen. You can see that we've got 3 main parts of this recipe. One is we're going to make some crepes, and that involves making the batter and then cooking them. And then we're going to be making a mushroom filling, and then we're going to be making a sauce that goes on top. So this recipe can look really long, but if you realize that it's really only 3 parts, then it makes it much more manageable. The other big reason why I want to emphasize that is because I advocate a theory of cooking that's called, I call it the Lego cooking system. And what that means is we all know what Legos are, and we can take the same kind of Legos, they're all the same shape, but we can make all these different things out of them. My son Eric, who's on this call today, was excellent at coming up with all these different creations. Well, cooking is a lot like that, where each one of these rows, think of it as a Lego. And if you'll learn it just once, then you can mix and match it all sorts of different ways. So it's important to realize that we're not making just one discrete recipe that you'll only make this way one time. What you're doing is learning all these different pieces. Today, we're going to mix and match them into this buckwheat crepes with mushroom filling. But you could, of course, use the crepe for all sorts of different things. And you're going to see that with Donna. We're going to be making spinach and olive, I think, is what we're going to maybe end up with. We'll see, Donna. And then the mushroom filling, of course, can go with a lot of things. I always talk about my friend Christine, I think, who's going to be on the call. She's Karen's sister. But she loves mushrooms and onions, and she makes them all the time. And she loves them, like, for instance, over spaghetti squash with sausage on the side. So that's another use, and you can put them on sausage, put them on steak, you can put them over pasta, on pizzas. So that's another Lego. And then, of course, the sauce has a lot of different uses as well. And there was my cat, because I knew he was going to come through and just whine a little, and now he's sitting where Maggie is supposed to be sitting. So anyway, but he's been fed, and I think he should be okay. We'll hope he quiets down. So with that, that's why I wanted to emphasize how important it is to read the recipe and know your game plan, but so you can understand these Legos. Oh, okay, sorry. That was not a planned addition. That was not part of the script. Okay. Let's hope he's, no, go away. Go away, go away, go away. Okay. Okay, so we're right back on schedule. The other thing that we want to do before we even start cooking in the chopping and the dicing is to make sure you've done your mise en place. And I gave you a long list to point that out, how you do that. Basically just setting up your ingredients and your equipment. And I've set up my crepe batters station here and my filling station here and my crepe cooking station over there. And I think you've probably done the similar thing. So now with all that getting prepared to cook steps done, now we're ready to actually start cooking. So let's go ahead and get started. And the first step, let me grab my recipe, is we're going to make the batter. And you might be wondering, well, why are we starting with that instead of like the onion filling, which is because most recipes start with chopping and sauteing an onion. And the reason is, well, let me explain that in a minute. Let's go ahead and get started. So I think everybody's, now Vicki, you've already started or made yours, so you're okay on this. But for those who haven't, go ahead back to start with your blender. Or let me ask this question. Is there anybody who doesn't have a blender to use? Because I gave you some different options. And unmute yourself. Is there anybody who, like, if you don't have at least a blender, a food processor, an immersion blender, a Vitamix, something like that? Just unmute yourself, let me know. Does anybody have to make theirs by hand with a whisk? Okay, then I'm just going to explain in the blender, because there's a little different process you use if you're making it by hand. Okay, so what we've got, we're going to go ahead and put in our milk or milk substitute. I'm using some homemade coconut cashew milk. And then we'll go ahead and put in the water, and you'll see that I had to, like, you might want a little container of water, but I'm going to have you only use a little bit of it to start with, and you'll see why. So we're putting in about a quarter cup of water. Then we're going to go ahead and put the oil, or eggs are first. And I've got my 3 eggs here, so go ahead and crack those in. And the reason that we are doing the liquids first, and it's not critical. A lot of times a blender will blend everything up. You don't have to worry about it. But we're doing the liquids first because a lot of times, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, you put the dry ingredients in first. What often happens is then you put the liquids on top and it kind of traps the dry stuff, and the blender has a hard time catching that and pulling it all together. So we're going to go ahead and put in all of the liquid ingredients first, blend that up a little bit, and then put the dry ingredients on top and blend it again. And so I'm kind of going to suggest, I'm putting in my olive, I'm actually using safflower oil today. You could use olive oil as well. And so I'm going to put this on. I'm going to suggest this is going to be loud. So I'm just going to do it as quick as I can. Okay, ready? That's all it takes to get that blended up. And now I'm going to go ahead and put my flours in. And I am using the combination that I wrote in the recipe, where it's a quarter cup of sorghum and then 3/4 cup of the buckwheat. And we do have other people doing different combinations, which is fine. A suggestion I do is I just fill them both into the same cup, and then I just make sure that I get the exact 1 cup measure, and I only get 1 measuring cup dirty. So we'll go ahead and put that there, and now we'll blend it. Let's see. And this doesn't take long either. And you'll notice that in the instructions, it does tell you to scrape down the sides of the blender. And the reason is and you can kind of see it here, the flour has gone up here. If we don't scrape it down, it's not going to get all the way incorporated into the batter. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that one more time. Okay, I think that's adequate. And now back to that question of why are we doing the crepes first, or making the batter first? And the reason is, and you'll see this in every crepe recipe, where they tell you to make it and let it sit ideally at least 1 to 2 hours. And we don't have quite that amount of time, but at least we'll be able to let this sit for 40, 45 minutes before we make the crepes. And the reason that the recipes that will often suggest that is that time allows the flour to absorb the moisture better, and it softens the flour, and it makes the crepes more tender. And now the thing is also, what you're going to notice is notice the consistency of your crepe batter, because it may look pretty thin to you. But in 40 minutes, just wait until you see how much thicker it gets as time goes by and that flour has a chance to absorb the liquids. And in this case, we want the crepe batter to be fairly thick for these crepes. And we'll talk about that when we actually get to cooking them. But there we go. And I'm going to set this over here for now. Okay, so there's our crepe batter. And so there we are. We're done with one whole piece, one whole row of the recipe. There we go. And by the way, the recipe instructs you to go ahead and pour it into a spouted container, because that's going to be a little easier to use when we make the crepes. And we're going to need this later in the recipe. I suggest don't bother washing it, but if that bothers you, don't. Go ahead and rinse it out if you want, but I'm just going to use it for the sauce as is. Okay, so now we go on to the second row of that recipe, which is to saute the onions and the mushrooms. And when we talk about the getting prepared to cook stage and those cooking Legos, probably the most important cooking Lego you can learn is how to chop and saute an onion, because if you cooked any time at all, you know that's how every recipe starts. So we're going to go ahead, and I've got to start my pan. There we go. Sometimes my burner has a little problem getting going. And actually, speaking of the pan, I want to start with that actually, because you probably can't tell, but this is, it's okay maybe. This is a really heavy skillet. And the recipe says, get a heavy bottomed skillet. And the reason for that, when we've got a heavy bottomed skillet, it's a lot harder to burn. And that's a good thing for all of us, right? Because we can forget things, and it's really easy to burn onions and things like that. So that's why we use a heavy bottomed skillet, and we also use a really large skillet. Now, I did mention that if you don't have a large one, or it's too hard for you to handle that, you can use 2 smaller ones too, but we definitely want a lot of room. And this gets into the whole idea and thinking about sauteing. Because like I said, if there's one Lego you really want to learn and learn it well, that's sauteing. And there's a whole, I have 8 steps that I go through when I teach people this. And I have a class on that. So if you need more information on that, I can get you that class. So today I'm not going to go into that, but it is important. I mean, basically we're frying some onions. But if you can pay attention to those little details, it can really make a difference and make life a lot easier for you. And, I actually realized that this would have been a good time to stop for just a minute and see, do we have any questions? We've made the crepe batter, and I'll go on and chop this onion in just a second, but my pan's got to heat up anyway. This would be a good time. Does anybody have any questions?
Feel free. You all can also post in the chat at the bottom and just type questions, and we can accumulate them there too.
I have a question, Mary.
Yeah.
What you may have said this, but what size are we chopping the onions to? You said a slice.
Right. Yeah, and you'll see that I'm going to be doing that. But in the instructions, what we'll do is we're going to be slicing it. And thanks for bringing this up, because it is important to look at the instructions. They should tell you what size, and it's not going to be a do or break thing, Claire, like if you don't get it just right. But sometimes it can help to have them sliced in a way that's appropriate for the recipe, that complements everything else. So in this case, we're going to be cutting the onion a 1/4 inch thick, and then we're going to cut it into 2-inch pieces. So unless there's any other burning questions, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. And for this, I'm going to move my island up closer to Maggie's camera. And she's going to kind of, let's see, go ahead, Maggie. Yeah, I think you can all see that pretty well. So let me repeat. What I did is I cut those ends off, and you saw me do that. And then I set it on that flat side. That makes it stable. And then I go ahead, cut that in half. And then now it's an easy time to go ahead and peel the outer skin off, rather than so many people try to do that before they cut the onion in half. And that makes life very tedious, and we don't want that. And now what I'm showing you here is my method of cutting an onion. If you have a method that works for you, that doesn't have you tearing up by the end, and that's efficient and gets you evenly sized pieces, you go ahead and use it. But in case you don't, then let me just point out how I do it. I have the knife under my fingers, and this, Claire, is where you're cutting the slices into 1/4 inch thick slices. So this is 1/4 inch, this is. And now the 2-inch slices is kind of rough. This is kind of in between, so I'm going to do that into 3. It could have gone into just a half. But this is about what you want then, is you end up with a piece of onion that's about 1/4 inch by 2 inches. Okay, and they're not all exactly like that, but pretty close. So now we'll do this one. And again, I am having the knife, let's see, maybe if I turn it this way, you can see that a little bit better. I've got the knife under my hand, and I caught it one direction, getting those 1/4 inch slices. And then I go the other direction, and let's see, this one I'm just going to cut one time, and that's probably a little more accurate to give me those 2-inch slices, okay? So, okay, so did that make sense to everybody? Do we have any questions about that?
You have a question on washing mushrooms, but if you want to address that now, just so that people maybe are or are not washing their mushrooms.
Okay, good. Yes, thanks, Emery. Right, I would not wash your mushrooms. So don't do that yet. We're going to get on to that right now. But if in case you're thinking you should wash your mushrooms, hold on, okay? Right now, though, I want to just point out in terms of sauteing, now what we're doing is I've been letting my pan heat up. It's a little low. And what I'm looking for now is that my oil gets hot but not smoking. And what you want it to do is when you put an onion in, a test one, it will really sizzle. And right now, there was no sizzle. And you would hear it if it was sizzling. So we have to wait just a little bit for that oil to get a little bit hotter, because saute means to jump. So when we put our onions in, we really want them to kind of jump and then sizzle really good. So we'll let that sit there for a while and try not to forget about it. Okay, so now let's get on to that next thing. One of the things we always want to do when we're cooking is if you have a lull in the action, go on to the next step, so that makes your cooking efficient. And our next step is it's the garlic. So let's do that, and then we'll get on to the mushrooms. And for the garlic, we need, I think, 1 clove chopped, I think. Let's take a look and just make sure. Minced. And I've got really big cloves of garlic here, but I also really like garlic. So I'm going to go ahead and put in 2 of these and save these for the sauce. And I've already pulled what do you call it? The skin off the garlic. The word is escaping me. And so what I did is I sliced those garlics one direction, and now I just keep the point of the knife down and go ahead and mince it up like that. Now, one of the things is a lot of people don't really like to deal with garlic, and I can understand that. So sometimes you can buy whole cloves of garlic that are already peeled. But you can also use, if you want to, you can use the jarred garlic, and that's just fine. I happen to have plenty of fresh garlic, so I'm using that. Okay, and now I'm looking at my pan over here and thinking that my olive oil is probably hot by now. I'm wondering if other people are finding that the olive oil is hot. You can also look at it, and if it starts to get kind of shimmery, or if it starts to get real thin, that's a good indication that you're getting hot but not smoking. So now I can hear that start to sizzle, and I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but let's go ahead and put these in. And I think you're going to hear this, right? Okay. That's the sound that you want, not just that dead thud when you put them in. Okay. And then other key thing about sauteing is once you get that oil hot, you get your onions in, then you go ahead and spread them out, and then you leave it and put your spatula down. So many people in our classes, and by the way, the heat is like a medium to medium. It's not a medium really. I wouldn't go too much higher than that. So many people in our classes have a tendency, they want to stir those onions, and that doesn't allow them the chance to brown. So we're going to leave them right there. So now the next step of our recipe, the garlic is ready, and we're ready now to move on to those mushrooms that Emery mentioned. Okay, so do we wash the mushrooms? No, we would prefer not to. And the reason is, it all goes back to this sauteing. Remember, we're learning about this Lego? The big point of sauteing is to brown ingredients, because that's how they get more flavorful. And cooking's about building flavor all the time. So what we want to do is we don't want to wash these mushrooms, because mushrooms are really absorbent. So they'll go ahead and trap all this water inside. Then when we want to brown them, they can't brown because they're full of water. So what we do instead is brush them. And what I'm using is just a toothbrush. And there's actually mushroom brushes that look just like this, but I just use a regular toothbrush, just bought a brand new one and use it for this purpose. And I'm looking at these mushrooms and going, they don't have much stuff on them. Sometimes they have a lot of those kind of brown flakes that we don't know what that is. And some people don't bother even with this stuff. They don't care about it. There's a big chunk there that will. I always like to at least brush it off. Now I'm just going to scrape that off with a fingernail there. Now some people have a problem with not washing their mushrooms. And for years I was like that. I went ahead and just washed them. And the thing is, then what's going to have to happen is that you'll just end up having to saute them longer, but they will eventually brown. So I don't want you to worry. If it makes you uncomfortable not washing your mushrooms, go ahead and do it. But if you're okay with this, I would just dry brush them instead. And now I want everybody to take a look and go over to your onions and take a look. What you're looking for, and I'll flip this, and then I'm going to get this close so Maggie can film it a little. You're looking for those onions to start getting brown. And let's see, Maggie, if I hold that up, can you see that? It's just starting to get brown right in the center here. And that's when it's time to flip them, but not sooner. So I think mine are just about ready. So I'm going to go ahead and flip them. But then once you get them flipped and you spread them out again, then I want you to put your spatula down and leave them again. Okay, and then we're going to get onto these mushrooms and we'll add those to it in just a minute. So I'm going to finish my brushing here. And I have to say that I was interested. You'll notice that I'm using them out of containers, which I dislike having to do that because those are some terrible environmental waste. But at Vitamin Cottage or Natural Grocers where I shop, they don't have the bulk mushrooms anymore. And I'm wondering if it's because of the whole situation that we're in. So this was all that I could find. And some of them are already sliced. So we'll put those in there. And feel free to buy pre-sliced mushrooms, and you'll have to know though that they're not going to be washed. So if that bothers you, you may want to buy the whole ones and wash them yourself. So there's a couple ways to cut these. As you saw, one way is to just cut them in hand, and I'm slicing them just like that. Okay, no problem. The other way is you can, and I'll push this up again another time. Another way is you can kind of, with bigger ones especially, I'm slicing the stem off, then I cut it in half because it's kind of too big, it's a pretty big mushroom, and then I slice it the other way. And you'll see that this is the same technique that we're following with the onions. Remember, we cut it one way and then we cut it the other way. So let's see, let's take a minute to check in here and see. This is a good time. I'm going to just add a couple more extra mushrooms because I've got them here. And it's okay if you add a little bit more than 4 cups. because it's our mushroom crepes after all, right? But I'll hold off on those. So let's see, how is everybody doing? Do we have any questions? And Claire, I hope that got your question solved around the onions. Is there anybody else? Just feel free to unmute yourself if you want to.
Are these the right size? They seem a little big.
Oh, can you say that again? I didn't hear.
Are they the right size? They seem a little big. They were already sliced, but I got
the
them.
ones that are already sliced. You know, I was noticing that too. And honestly, I don't think it would hurt, especially whoever's talking, did you get the pre-sliced ones too?
This is Allison. Yes, I did.
Okay. You know, Allison, it would not hurt at all if you want. Just go ahead and do a couple rough chops on there. We do not want these to be chopped up small though. Okay. Definitely not. We definitely want them sliced.
These are baby Bellas. Is that the same thing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They're baby Bellas. They didn't have cremini. Someone said they're the same. Is that the same?
Yes, yes. Baby Bella. A cremini is just a baby portobello.
Ah,
so baby Bella is a cremini.
I didn't know that. Thank you.
For you. Oh, okay, I'm going to answer more questions if you have them, but we're going to move on because my onions are getting very nicely brown. They're just right. Just almost maybe getting a little too brown, but let's see. Maggie's going to get a picture of that. Can you see the brownness in them? Yeah. Okay.
I have a quick question.
Okay, could you wait just 1 second?
Sure.
Okay, because what we need to do now is the next step we need to do, because my onions are brown and we need to go on to the next step, but I want to answer your question. What we're going to do is go ahead, at this point we're going to add that second tablespoon of butter, and I used olive oil for the first tablespoon, but no problem, that can work as well. And now I'm going to add the other tablespoon of butter, because that butter does give this a really good flavor. And then what I've done is I've pushed all my onions to the side of the pan. And we call this the hole in the middle trick that we do in our classes. And if you've been in my live classes, you've probably seen this. And so into that hole, we're going to put the garlic. Okay, we've minced the garlic and we're going to put it right in there. Going to give that garlic just a little bit of time to be in the fat that we're cooking with, whether it's oil or butter. That allows the flavor of the garlic to get in the butter, and then the butter will help transmit that around to the rest of the dish. So we're going to go do that, and then we're going to go ahead and add the mushrooms in, and they're going to have a chance to get into that butter as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put all those in there. And then at this point, then that's got a ways to cook before. Let's see. We're going to let those cook and brown. Now, if you've washed your mushrooms, don't worry, but it's going to take you a little longer, okay? And that's not a problem either, because we've still got to make the sauce and stuff anyway. So don't worry about that. Okay, and I'm just double checking that, yeah, we want to go ahead and do those mushrooms and stir. At this point, stir the garlic around, because we don't want it to be cooking right on the bottom of the pan any further, it will burn. And so stir everything together, and now we're going to let those mushrooms just have a chance to go ahead and get nice and brown as well. So this is a great time. I would love to answer any questions. Who had a question there?
I had a question, but you answered it. I was confused about the oil versus butter.
Yeah.
So we're using butter, not oil.
You could do either. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I happen to like in this recipe, I just found that I really like the butter. I'm sorry, I'm talking to the computer where I'm seeing people's faces, and I have to remember to talk to the camera. I really like the butter flavor, and so the olive oil is just fine. Don't worry about it. But or mixture is just fine as well. Okay. So, are there any other questions though before we move on? Okay, I'm listening. So if there are, just let me know, or put them in the chat, and Eric will let me know. So good. So now we're in that second row, but we just have a little bit of a lull. So remember, that's when we look ahead and see, okay, what needs to be done now? And that happens to be the walnut pieces. And Donna, this is where your you're just holding off on all of this, and don't anybody else worry about that. Donna knows what's going on. We're gonna talk about her and take care of her in just a little bit here at the end of class. So on the walnuts, you're gonna go ahead and measure out the 3/4 cup. You might have bought walnuts that are already in pieces, and if you did, that's great. That's just gonna save you a little bit of time. Mine are whole. And so what I'm going to be doing is chopping them up just a little bit. They don't have to be tiny, but definitely chopped up some. The other thing is, you know, if you ever like to, the other thing you can do with walnuts, which is kind of a relaxing thing if you have the time, is, you know, they break up with your hands really easily. Or you can just use the side of a knife and crush them like that. You know, because sometimes people don't feel real comfortable around chopping things. But just know you have some options there. I'm going to go ahead and chop them just a little bit. I would say that I'm getting them down to maybe between 1/4 and 1/2 of an inch. So, and I'm wondering, I'm just going to do a test here. Is everybody hearing me okay? Because the mushrooms are really sizzling over here. And I can move the microphone a little bit if it's getting too loud. Okay.
Yeah, my cooking is loud too, so I'm having a harder time hearing you.
Okay. You know what I'm going to do? This is what we figured out the other day, is that I need to move my board over to this side and move my microphone over here. Okay. Is that any better if I moved a little bit away from the stove? Can you hear me just a little bit better now?
That's worse.
Oh, it's worse.
Yes.
Yikes. Okay. Well, thanks for the feedback. We'll just move right over. We'll move it right back. And hopefully this is going to, let's see.
What?
There we go. Okay. Yeah. Did somebody else have a comment?
I was wondering, are you salting your onions and mushrooms right now?
Salting. No, I'm not salting them now. I am going to suggest that we hold off on the salting. Some people do that. I know that. I'm going to suggest that we hold off on that because we don't know about our beans, whether they're salted or not. This is a dish. Mushrooms can be kind of salty once they're sauteed down, and we're going to add wine to it. So I'm going to have us hold off on the salting until we get a little further along in the dish. You can taste it and make it right for you. People are so different on salt. I know some people are on low sodium and some love lots of salt. So let's hold off on that a minute. Okay, does that sound all right? Okay, and then Emery, can you do a sound check, or how is the sound doing? Okay, good. Okay, I'm sorry, I know it does get a little loud, so I'm sorry if you can't hear me. Maybe I could talk a little louder too at this point. Okay, so, what? Okay, all right, so don't forget to, I'm looking over at my pan, don't forget to go ahead and flip your onions and your mushrooms down. And I'm getting some very nice browning with my mushrooms. And that's what we're looking for. Okay. Okay, let's see. I could show you a picture of that. Okay, let's see. So now we got the next step done. The next thing we're going to be doing is the wine. And then we'll talk a little bit about the mushroom. So while we're waiting on this, is somebody asking a question? Okay. While we're waiting on this, I'm going to talk a little bit about the wine because we have a couple of things going on. I myself can't have a lot of wine. So whenever we have a measurement that is given in a range, like in this case, 1/4 to 1/2 cup of white or red or sherry wine, always start with the lower amount unless you know for sure that you really like wine and things, and then you go ahead and put in your 1/2 cup. But I'm going to do the 1/4 cup. Now we have some people who don't want to use wine at all, which is fine. You could actually probably live without it. It's not a key ingredient. It just builds a little more nice flavor in there. But what I am wondering about and what we're going to experiment with is whether some red wine vinegar could be used instead of the wine. And the inquiry that you want to have is, what purpose is the wine serving in the recipe? And wine, you know, it's kind of sourish tasting, even real wine, as not opposed to just the red wine vinegar. So that's why I'm thinking that maybe the wine, if we could substitute a little bit of red wine vinegar, obviously a lot less than just real wine. So what we're going to do, and this is a technique that's really important to know, is that we have to modify recipes all the time. But what you need to know is, how do I do that without ruining the whole dish? So Vicki in particular, this is going to be you and Lisa, because Lisa's got cooking wine. Not wine, but cooking wine. And I have not had great luck with that myself. I find it too salty. But I'm telling both of those, let's go ahead and experiment. And the way you experiment is, once this is cooked and we're ready to add the wine, what you'll do is you two will add just a tablespoon of your cooking wine or your red wine vinegar. We're going to let that cook. And then, you know, later on when we get to the testing portion, I'm going to have you test it. And you're going to see, well, maybe I like a little bit more, or maybe that's enough. Okay? So Vicki and Lisa, does that make sense? Okay, or give a thumbs up to Eric. Okay, all right. Okay, good. Okay, so I'm looking at my mushrooms, and I have got some wonderful browning. I want to see if Maggie can get this. Maybe I'm going to put this behind a plate and see if you can see. Can you see how wonderful that browning is? That's what we're looking for. Okay, so, and your onions are getting nice and brown. So this is the time when, I don't know if I did this, but yeah, this is the time when we want to go ahead and add the walnuts. And again, just like before, I'm pushing things to the sides of the pan, all the mushrooms and the onions, and I'm going to add the walnuts right in the middle. And the reason I'm doing that this time, I'm not adding any oil this time like I did with the garlic. I'm just adding them there so they can have a chance to kind of toast just a little. And I don't know how familiar you are with toasting your nuts, but it brings out some wonderful flavor in them. So I've got them in the middle of my pan. I'm just giving them a couple minutes to see if they can have a chance to toast. And then we're going to go ahead and add that wine. I'm using sherry, and I didn't know last time if that was going to work, because the first time I did it was with red wine, but I was out, so I tried the sherry, and I really liked it. So I'm going to go ahead and measure out my sherry, and everybody, if you can go ahead and measure your wine out and just set it there. And Lisa and Vicki, just measure out just that tablespoon of vinegar or cooking wine as appropriate. And I think in an ideal world, you might want to let these walnuts toast a little bit longer, but we're going to kind of need to keep going. And so we're going to go ahead and stir in the wine. And let's go ahead and turn this down now and make sure that, we want to reduce the heat now down to low. And we're going to stir that in, the wine, and let that have a chance to cook down. And now what's going to happen is our filling is just going to go ahead and continue cooking on low heat while we go on and make the sauce and cook the crepes. And that'll be great. That'll give it a chance for those mushrooms to cook down and get darker and richer. And what we're going to need to be watching for, and I'm just making sure that I'm stirring everything up, so you do the same. What we're going to be watching for is making sure that it doesn't get too dry. Here's what we have to look for. Think about the crepes. What you don't want to happen is that your crepes get soggy. So your filling, we want it to be moist and not dry, but we don't want it to be sloppy wet, or it's going to mush out your crepes. So that is why, remember I told you to have some broth in case you need it. And I've got some here, some bone broth. And so I'm going to add just a little bit now. Maybe like, if you want to measure, just put in like 2 tablespoons or something. And then we'll keep an eye on it. And if you think it's getting too dry, or especially if it's in danger of burning, then we'll add a little bit more as we go on and make the sauce. So just kind of keep an eye out on that. Okay, so it's time to go on and make the sauce, but I want to stop for a minute. One, check and make sure that we do everything that the recipe said. That's always a good idea. Another cooking skill there. And the other thing is to listen for questions. And somebody raised the question of salt. I'm wondering, do you guys remember, did I add salt to my crepe batter? I don't think I did. Okay, so I'm going to add my salt now and stir it in. No problem. We can do that. And again, it's one of those ranges of measurements, a quarter cup, a quarter to a half teaspoon. And I kind of go in between. I do like salt. I don't have a big restriction. And I think salt in bready things can really help bring the flavor out. And you know what? This is interesting. Is just since we started, how much thicker my batter has become. So kind of interesting. So I'll leave that fork in it because I may need to add a little more water to that at the end and mix it in with the fork. So this is cooking. We're going to go on and make the sauce. But first, are there any other questions that anybody has? How are you doing out there? Can you kind of give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, or are you having troubles?
Mary, I have a question. Mary?
Yep, go ahead, Claire.
Oh, okay. So if we're going to leave something like the mushrooms and the onion sauteing on their own, is it better to cover it, or do we leave it open so it solidifies, or like what's our moisture?
Good question. Yes. If we really wanted to make sure we didn't, a lot of times we do put a lid on it to make sure that it doesn't burn. In this case, though, Claire, when we put a lid on things, what that'll do is it kind of steams things more. And what we're trying to do is continue to cook those mushrooms and onions down so they get really thick and rich and browner and browner. And the lid would prevent that. The lid would make it so it wouldn't burn, that's for sure. But we really actually want it to kind of almost caramelize down. And I'm sure you've all seen caramelized onions, and the mushrooms get the same way. So that's why we're not doing the lid, and instead we're cooking it down, open surface, and we're just watching it. If it looks like it's getting too dry or maybe burned, we'll add a little broth to it instead.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, super.
I'm wondering.
Hey, Mary. Okay.
Go ahead.
Hey, Mary, it's Christine. Hey, my crepe batter isn't very thick yet. What do you do?
No, don't worry about it, Christine. Well, first, Christine, which flour did you use?
I got the buckwheat and the sorghum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, don't worry about it, because if at the end your batter doesn't get thick, sometimes that happens. And also sometimes you might want to make crepes and you just forgot to make them an hour in advance. So we can just add a little more flour to it.
Okay. Thanks.
And we'll talk about consistency because that's kind of a tricky thing when we get to that point. Okay. Any other questions though?
Yes, I'm wondering what is the level of heat that we're doing our mushrooms on?
I've got it on low, medium low at the most. I can hear a gentle sizzle on mine. That's what you want to get to, because that's going to continue to brown it real slowly. I'm wondering, are people starting to see their mushrooms kind of, what they'll do is kind of shrivel, and the onions will shrivel, and they're going to get really deep, dark, rich brown. Are we seeing that?
How moist do we want them to be?
Well, you know what, Maggie, let's take a look. Let's just show this. Okay, can you see there's like a little moisture down in the bottom of the pan? Okay, I'm thinking that seeing this is probably the best. Is that helping at all?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I have much more liquid than that.
Me too.
Did you put more broth in?
No, I didn't put any broth.
Did you put the wine?
No broth for me either. Yes, honey.
I put a little wine, just the 1/4 cup.
How
And I
much
didn't
wine?
wash my mushrooms. Yeah.
I'm sorry, did you say you washed your mushrooms?
No, I didn't.
Okay, and how
So-
much wine did you put in?
The 1/4 cup.
Quarter cup.
I drank the rest.
Okay, you know, that's why we're just going to keep cooking it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you go right ahead, and I might have had mine on a little bit higher temperature than you, at the outset. So let's just, you're fine. In other words, don't put any broth in. Let's just keep an eye on it, okay? Okay?
Okay.
Did I answer everybody's questions?
Yes.
Okay. All righty. Well, then let's move on to, so let's just check back in where we are. We finished that second one. We just might need to add a little broth. That's all. But we're done with that. Now it's on to the third row. So look, we got 2 rows already done. So on we go. Our sauce. Let's talk about the pan. It's important too. I told you to get a heavy bottom saute pan or saucepan, and pretty big. This is a 4-quart one. We don't want a little one because it'll slop all over. And you want it pretty heavy bottomed, okay? If it's a real thin pan, it's so easy to burn things, especially when we do these green onions, because they burn pretty easily anyway. So I'm going to grab my green onions and let's see, slicing them. Now we need 2 cups. By the way, just a fun fact, these are green onions that came from my garden. They're actually called walking onions because over time they develop these long stems with a seed pod on the end, and they gradually walk all over your garden. So it's kind of fun. But they come up in March of every year, and even in the snow, they're out there growing away. So it's kind of fun to be able to use those. So in terms of cutting them, and just so you know, you can use both the whites and the green parts. Okay, so you don't have to, some people throw away the green parts and use just the white. No need, we can use it all. So we're gonna go ahead and slice those. Let's see, I think we said about a 1/2 inch thick. So I'm slicing those, and of course I'm doing them all together so that I don't, have to, that's just an efficiency technique. And sometimes one of the things that we can do is, I'm going to go ahead and turn my pan on to start warming up. When you have those heavier bottom pans, they do take a little bit longer to warm up, so you do have to turn them on a little bit in advance. One of the other things that you might notice is, the thing is, you can use both the green and the white part of the onions, but the white part of the onions are more like a regular onion, and so they could benefit from a little more time cooking. And so a lot of times what I will suggest to people, especially if you're a person who doesn't really like raw onions like me, is that I will cut the white parts off, and then I'll go ahead and cut the green parts. And then I'll put these in first, let them have a chance to cook maybe 1 or 2 or 3 minutes. And then I'll put the green onions in, because the green parts, they don't take much time at all to cook. Okay, and so think about that. I mean, but if you really love onion flavor, might not be something you need to worry about. Now let's talk a little bit, and I'm going to move up, and you might not be able to see me because I want you to be able to see what's going on here. Okay, we're going to use the butter again. And again, like we talked last time, you can use olive oil if you prefer. But I think in the sauce, it is really nice to have the butter. It really adds a nice richness and creaminess to this sauce. So I would suggest that. But what we're going to do is, I've got my heat on now, no higher than medium, because here's the thing with butter is that it can burn really easily. And so we never want to go over about medium heat with it. And then we're going to just let that get to the point where when I put the onions in, they will just gently sizzle. And they're not there yet. And I don't know that you're going to be able to hear when that gets that warm. But you remember what it was like when we put the onions in here. It was kind of like a pretty good sizzle. That was a saute. Look for something gentler with that butter, okay? 1, because we don't want the butter to burn, and 2, we don't want the green onions to burn either. And this afternoon, I think I kind of burned some that I had for my lunch, so be mindful of that. Okay, so again, though, we're waiting on that, so let's jump ahead and see what needs to be done before. The next thing that's going to go in after the green onions is a little more garlic. And now the other one I put in, seems some of my green onions are not quite so good, is I told you that I had pretty big garlic cloves. So I am not going to put 2 of those big ones in. In fact, I'm just going to put the one big one, because this sauce isn't all about garlic. I mean, I guess if you really loved garlic, you could put a little bit more in, but I would keep it a little milder myself. And the thing about a recipe is you can always adjust it the way that you want. And you know, the next time you make this, it may be that you decide, I do like this. I would like this a little more garlicky. And that is perfectly fine. But maybe this first time, maybe keep it just a little bit milder on the garlic in the sauce. So we're going ahead, we're just mincing up that garlic. Does anybody have questions about mincing their garlic or anything? You having any trouble with that? Okay. Okay, good enough. And now I am hearing though that my butter is sizzling over here. And let's see, I'm going to bring this over here. I don't know if anybody, can you hear that? I'll put the rest of these in because this is what a gentle sizzle sounds like.
Yep.
Okay, okay. So that's what we're looking for. Nothing too extreme. And I forgot to measure those. I'm pretty sure I was close to 2 cups. But don't worry if you're a little bit over, a little bit under. It's not the end of the world. And in the end, I also forgot to put the darn white parts in because I was waiting for the butter to get warm. And then I forgot all about it. So no problem, we can deal with that. We'll just let it cook just a little bit longer, okay? And you know, I'm kind of glad that.
What were we supposed to do with the? Were we supposed to put the white in first? I'm sorry, I'm way behind you. I'm playing catch up the whole time. So.
Oh yeah, no problem. What I was suggesting, and I suggested it and then just didn't do it, is to go ahead and put the white parts of the onion in first. Let those cook maybe 2 to 3 minutes because they're a little stronger in flavor. And then go ahead and put the green parts in. Does that make sense? But I forgot all about it in the heat of the moment and put everything in together, so I'm just letting it all cook together. And that'll work too. We just want to cook it a little bit longer.
Mary, did you put the garlic in already?
No, let's look and see what I say in the recipe. We're going to do, we're letting those onions cook just a little bit. You could conceivably put it in at the same time, but I'm letting those onions cook a little bit. And then we're going to put in the garlic and the seasonings all at once.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, and that's all in the recipe. So don't worry if you don't remember, Okay, so now those onions do need to cook a little bit because I'm somebody, like I said, who doesn't really appreciate raw onions. So cook them more or less depending on how much you like onions, the raw onion flavor. But now let's look ahead in the recipe and see the next big thing we are going to need to do is we need to make the white bean puree. And that's just going to be a cup of white beans and then a cup of your milk or milk substitute. And somebody brought up that they had already drained their beans and then saw that I had actually said to save the bean juice. The only reason I do that is because if you've got a good can of beans that is not canned in just highly salty water, then this can be some nutrient-filled water that can be good for, like, say you're making a soup or I know that Emery, when she made this sauce, she used some of this bean juice in the sauce as well. So in other words, it's just another good resources that you don't have to throw away down the drain, okay? But if you did, I mean, it's not the end of the world for sure. So let's go ahead and I'm going to measure out a cup, which should be about 2/3 of a can of beans, because usually it's about a cup and a half of beans is in a can. So yeah, there we go. We've got my beans, and this is going to go into the same blender that we used before, and I did not wash it out. And again, I'm going to put the liquid down at the bottom. That makes it, I think, a little bit easier for this thing to process. And go ahead and dump the beans in, and then I'm going to puree it. And now I'm pretty sure everybody does have a blender, because if you don't, you can mash these up in a pie plate, which is kind of a pain, so I'm glad you all have blenders. And now, before we run that though, would everybody take a look at your green onions? Mine are cooking very nicely. We're not we're not about browning on the green onions. So you can see that these are more steaming, and that's okay because we don't really want to brown these that much. And they're going to cook more once we add the bean mixture as well. So those are doing good. So let's go ahead and everybody go ahead and run your blender, because you want to. We want to get that quite smooth, okay? It's going to be a sauce, so we don't really want the bean texture in there. So go ahead and run it all the way smooth. I'm going to just, I should have Maggie mute this for a second, but that's okay. It'll be all right. And once again, make sure that you scrape down the sides of the pan of the blender in case any of the beans kind of got up there. And now we're going to go ahead and add that to the green onions, but well, first we need to add the garlic, and let me just set this over there.
Should folks who have meat, should they begin browning the meat right now?
Yes, thank you very much. And I meant to, who all has meat? I know Mel was going to have meat.
I do, Christine.
Catherine? Okay, and I apologize.
I don't
because
know, I was a little confused about why we would, having it or not. I don't get.
Yep. And I apologize because I had it in my notes and then I didn't follow my notes. But I was going to have you go ahead and actually add it while we were doing the introductory talk and then have it on the side. But can I ask the people with meat, what kind of meat do you have? Like, is it a burger or is it chicken breasts or cooked chicken or what?
Ground turkey.
Ground turkey.
Ground turkey, and it's raw.
Or yeah.
Okay.
I have cooked shredded chicken.
Shredded chicken that's cooked?
Yep.
Okay, so the people with the cooked chicken, go ahead and add it now. The people with the raw meat, what I would do is the same thing. Let's put it into this pan with the mushrooms and the onions. But here I am talking at the computer again instead of the camera. Go ahead and push this all to the sides of the pan. Put your meat right in there. And go ahead and cook it while the rest of this just continues to cook down. And keep the heat on low, and it will cook. I'm pretty sure that I have this in the shopping list that I wouldn't do more than about a half a pound of the ground beef or ground turkey, whatever ground meat you have.
And sorry, Mary, this is Mel. Ready to finish put my chicken?
Sorry.
That's all right.
Where did you say I should put my chicken? Cooked chicken?
Oh, is your chicken cooked already?
Yeah, it is.
Just stir it into the mushrooms.
In the mushrooms. Okay, thank you.
But Mel, I'm pretty sure I talked about this in the shopping list that you don't want to have too terribly much because it could kind of thin all these flavors out.
Sounds
so
good.
Like cooked chicken, maybe a cup to a cup and a half.
Okay.
And you've chopped it pretty small to kind of be complementary to the mushrooms and onions.
Yeah, it's shredded, so.
Okay, good. And then I think was it Allison or Catherine? You've got the raw turkey burger? And are you putting it in the center of your pan and letting that cook with that?
This is Christine. I got mine doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, maybe it was Christine.
You're getting a nod from Allison.
Okay, good. And I'm looking at my onion mixture, and I'm seeing it's kind of getting dry. Like there is no more liquid on the bottom of the pan. So just because it's going to be a little bit before we are able to use this, and I actually want my onions and mushrooms to brown a little bit further, I'm going to add like another just couple tablespoons of the broth. Okay. So just check yours and see what you think about yours. And so now I've got just enough liquid that it's covering the bottom of the pan, and I'm scraping up all the bits on the bottom of the pan to make sure that they all get incorporated into the mushrooms and onions. Okay. Okay, so now let's take a look at, and I need to get a better spoon. I want to take a look at our green onions, and they've gotten a tiny bit of browning, but not much. And I think they're going to be just right. So now we're going to go ahead, and it's time we can add the garlic and the seasonings. And this is a point at which, Donna, you need to make a decision about whether you want to put in oregano or sage. Which do you think? And nobody else we're all going to use is sage, but Donna's going to be kind of going a different direction. And so
I'm doing oregano.
You're going to do oregano? Okay. I think that's a good idea. Okay. So what I've done is I've stirred in the minced garlic into my green onions, and now I'm going to go ahead and add the spices. So let's take a look and make sure that I get the right amounts. Okay. So for the sage, and I'm hoping everybody was able to find the dried rubbed sage. And I hope I explained it well enough, but I'm going to see if we can get that. Can you see that? Can you see that this is really, it's fluffy. It's not a ground spice. So can people let me know, were you able to find the the dry rub sage? Okay, is there anybody who has the ground sage? Because that's a different story. Okay, because you got to use a lot less. So if anybody has it, it's not a problem. Don't worry about it, but we just got to make sure that you use a lot less.
Hey, Mary, we have it. We have the ground.
Okay, good. Okay. Oh, you have ground. Okay. I believe that what I read was about, you probably only want to use a 1/4 teaspoon.
Okay, we will. Thank you.
And then when after we taste it, you could add a little bit more and cook it a little bit longer if you feel like you want a little more. Okay. And on the sage, you'll notice that to begin with, it is saying 1 to 2 teaspoons. So if you don't know whether you like sage, stick with that 1 teaspoon. Okay. I know that I like it, and so I put in the 2 teaspoons. Okay. Next thing is nutmeg, and a 1/4 teaspoon of that. So go ahead and put that in. And then the other thing is cayenne pepper. Now, see, I have these nice little spice jars that have a shaker on the top. So that's why I always measure this out in 2 to 3 shakes. And if you're not familiar with cayenne pepper, what you need to know, it's very, very powerful, right? Okay, so that's why we're doing it just by little shakes. And so if you're wondering about it, what you could do is get a spoon and take, like just a pinch. I wouldn't put in more than like a 1/32 of a teaspoon or less. Because this can always be added at the end if you want just a little more of that. Because that's what it's doing to the recipe. It's not all about making it hot. We just want to add a little bit of a zing to it, okay? So I'm going to start with a smaller amount, 1, 2 shakes. That's all I did. And then I'll stir that in. And later on, when we're going to be tasting everything in just a little bit, then we're going to go ahead and if you feel like you want a little more, we can add 1 more shake, okay? So is that working for everybody? How are we doing on that? Okay, and if you don't like cayenne pepper, if you think that's maybe too much, you could just use black pepper. I think you saw that in the recipe. Okay,
if anybody doesn't know how to unmute themselves, it should be in the lower left-hand corner of your screen too.
You can also use the space bar, which I forgot.
Oh, nice, nice. I did not know that. Perfect. Okay, let's make sure. Is there somebody who needs a question? Okay, so now I've got my bean and milk puree, and we've let this cook for just a couple of minutes. And so now what we're going to do, I'm just making sure that I'm following my instructions. And we're going to go ahead and pour this in and stir it all together. And then this is going to continue cooking as well. I'm going to get my spatula back here. This is going to continue cooking as well once we get to the point where we're cooking the crepes, which is coming right up. And then I think what we'll do is go ahead and we'll learn to cook the crepes. And we'll do one. And then I want us to take a minute and taste everything. Because one of the parts of a recipe that often gets overlooked is the part where they say taste and adjust the seasonings. And that's so important because everybody's tastes are so different. So if you don't stop and taste it and adjust it, it could very well be something you go, oh, this isn't that great. Well, and all you needed to add was some salt or another shake of cayenne or something. So that's why we're going to make sure that we do that. And like the vinegar people and the cooking wine people, we want to make sure you do that. And the people who added meat, let's make sure it's got enough flavor. Maybe you need to add some more wine or some more broth with the meat added. I'm going to show you my white sauce, or white sauce. It's kind of like a white sauce. It's just that we use beans as a thickener instead of flour. But here it is. It's fairly thin now, but we're going to go ahead and cook it down, and it's okay if it gets thick because we'd almost like it to be thick on top of the crepes so it doesn't mush them out. So that I've got it on about just a medium heat, and it'll probably start simmering, and that'll be just fine. And my mushrooms and onions are cooking, and so I think we can go on to start talking about crepes.
Do we add salt to the white sauce or to the onion mixture at all?
Thank you. I was just getting to that. I realized I forgot that. Here's the thing about the bean mixture. Take a look at your beans and see, did you get a no sodium one, a low sodium one, a high sodium one? Because the thing is, depending upon how much salt there is in here, you're not going to want to add much to this. Now, I ended up getting a no salt added variety. And so I'm definitely going to have to add a little bit of salt to mine because we know how bland beans can be. But if you've got a high salt one, then you may want to be really cautious. I would get, this is when your little tasting spoon comes in. And that's what I've got over here. And I told you all to include that as part of your mise en place because you're going to want to taste things and just see, because that's the only way to know whether it meets the way you like the salt. On the mushrooms, I don't think we're going to need the salt on there. I'm just thinking, I'm wondering if it's time we could go ahead and taste it. I think mine is cooked enough that I can get a good taste on it. So maybe everybody, what do you think? Should we go ahead and taste the mushroom filling and see what we think on that? I have to get it out. I have to let it. Oh, go ahead.
It's delicious.
Is it? Okay, good. Did you think it needed salt?
Sorry, I had to shut my door after the dogs got out. I don't know, maybe.
Who's talking, by the way?
Allison.
Allison, okay. I know I'm tasting mine, Allison, and I don't think I'm not sure I want salt in it. I could maybe put 1/8 of a teaspoon, say. But it's such a personal thing, so that's what I'm saying, And a little pepper wouldn't hurt, though. So I'm going to put a few grinds of pepper. So has anybody else tasted their mushroom filling? I'd love to hear.
This is
I added
Lisa.
some salt.
Sorry. It's Lisa. My taste tester said to put a little lemon juice in it.
That's
Yes, Lisa. Well, Lisa, you used the cooking wine. Did you use that?
Yeah, but I didn't use very much. So.
Well, do you think you want to use more?
Maybe.
Okay. Well, lime is another good idea because remember we were talking about the role of the wine is to add some acid. And I was going to tell you that lemon could be another good thing, but generally we just don't like to add lemon until the very end.
Okay.
If it cooks, it takes away a lot of the flavor and the brightness of it.
Okay.
So
maybe I'll add like another half a teaspoon of the cooking wine.
Okay, or do you think more than that? I mean, maybe you need more.
I don't know. Maybe another teaspoon.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, do you really taste it? Is it really salty?
No, it's
not. Why don't you add another tablespoon or two?
Okay.
Or here's the other thing you should do really, and let me just slow down for a minute. what you should do, Lisa, is take a little bit of your filling out. Add like a half a teaspoon or a quarter teaspoon to just that amount, stir it in, taste it then.
Oh, okay. I'll do that.
And then if you like that, and if that adds some good flavor, then maybe you'd want to add as much as a tablespoon or two to this.
Okay.
If you don't like that, then take another little taste and add some lemon to it and say, that's what I like. And then at the very end, you'll add lemon to your filling.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I'd like to hear what you come up with on that, okay?
All right.
Okay.
Hey, Mary, it's Evelyn here. And
hi, Evelyn.
Hello. We got a little bit ahead of you, and we have to say I'm eating, and Jim's eating it. It's so delicious. Thank you. And we're signing out.
Did you make your crepes already?
Yes. Look.
Oh, good. I see that we are a little behind, and so I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, but it's delicious. Thank you. All right. Goodbye, everybody. All right.
I'm so glad.
All right.
Excellent.
Thank you. Yes.
Good. And I just want to point out real quick that my sauce is getting really thick. So that's a fine thing because then it won't mush out the crepes.
Okay.
We'll go ahead, and I'm turning that way down now. I'm turning the sauce down, and let's go ahead and do the crepes.
It's Vicki.
Oh, yes, Vicki?
He finished too, and I think we're going to, unless you want to talk to me, maybe you could call me back in, or I can call you.
Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry.
We finished, and it looks amazing. We want to eat.
I don't blame you a bit. And I want to hear how your crepes went, because Vicki made the vegan crepes, but with just one egg. So
it came out great. They're yes, we already tasted, and they're perfect.
Good, good, good. Yeah. Okay, so if you know how to make crepes, that's wonderful. Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you.
How to make crepes, that's wonderful. But I'm going to go ahead and show you how to cook the crepes themselves, and then it's just a matter of assembly. And don't forget, though, you're going to want to, while you're cooking your crepes, go ahead and chop up that parsley, because that's really pretty on top. So we'll do that. So let's take a look at your batter to begin with. And can you see what somebody described? It should be like melted ice cream. So I don't know. Does that look like melted ice cream? Okay. Okay. So if it's not,
Mine isn't that.
What?
Mine's not that thick.
It's not that thick? Who's talking?
Allison's is not that thick.
Okay. Then Allison, what you might want to do, is it a lot thinner?
Look.
Oh, I couldn't. Oh, okay. Oh, let me see. Oh, that is quite a bit thinner. Why don't you add about a tablespoon of flour, or 2 tablespoons, okay? And that might be a little bit much, but add 2 tablespoons, and then it should be about right. And it will actually
buckwheat.
Yeah, flour. Yeah. And the thing is that you will probably be just fine any way you go. The whole point, though, is that when you're making a crepe for a savory dish with this hearty filling, then it's kind of nicer if your crepe is a little thicker. It'll hold up to it. But if your crepe is a little thinner, you'll still be able to make the crepes. It just won't hold up to the filling quite as much. So no worries either way, okay? So now what we're going to do is talk about crepe pans. And you can see this one's really light, but it's a non-stick, and it's got a shallow lip. And I really like that. I mean, this is probably about a $5 pan or something, so it's not any big deal, but it works really well for cooking the crepes. But you've got other options: a pancake griddle, a small skillet. What you don't want is a really thin bottom stainless steel one, because that will probably burn before you can get your crepe cooked, okay? And it'll kind of stick a lot. So what I do on this is I've got my pan on medium heat. I'm looking for it to be to the point where I can do this and the water sizzles, okay? That's what you're looking for. And then what I do is I take and I put a little butter on there, like about this. So I'm trying to show this as well as keep the pan hot. But then you might want to try to kind of wipe off some of it, because if you get too much butter on there, and my pan cooled off, I've got to let it heat up. Get too much butter, your crepe is just going to kind of, slide all over the pan. So I wiped off a good portion. Now that's a little different if you're using a pan that is not non-stick, like a stainless steel or cast iron. You might need a little more butter. You might have to butter every time you start a new crepe. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pour, the equivalent of about maybe, I don't know, 3 tablespoons. And then I do this little technique where I just gently and patiently let that batter kind of flow around the pan. I'm trying to keep it in view of the camera. Am I doing it, Maggie? Okay. And then, and my pan is a little bit cool because I keep taking it off. But now we just have to let that sit and cook. And this is where it's important to have some patience, because if you try to flip it too soon, it'll fall apart. So we have to let it get to the point where the top kind of gets set. By that they mean kind of dry, and like it's fairly well cooked. And then we'll flip it over. And to flip it, you can use a plastic spatula or metal if you've got a metal pan. But a lot of people will just use their fingers. So you can kind of decide what works best for you. And in terms of size, it could be nice to get a one that's more like about a 6 or 8 inch one. Mine's going to be, 5 or 6 inches, and it doesn't matter. So just do whatever you can manage, and especially with your pan. And now while we're waiting on that, there's one last step we want to do with our sauce here, because mine is real nice and thick, but I'm going to go ahead and put in that last tablespoon of butter. And remember, I was telling her about the lemon. We don't want to put that in till the end. Well, the same goes for butter. When you put that in at the very end of a sauce and kind of mix that in and let it, I'll actually use a whisk. It's amazing what a velvety, creamy consistency that adds without having to add the cheese, which is good for me because I can't have dairy. So now I'm looking at my buckwheat crepe, and do you see how it's just kind of, it's kind of floating around there? Well, that shows me that I can probably flip that over and it's going to release from the pan. So let's take a look. Okay, and maybe I'll put this over here one more time. Yep, my flipper went right under it and I flipped it over. My pan was a little cool, so I don't have a lot of browning on it, but I'm going to let it, in the next one, I'll let that heat up just a little more and not keep taking it on and off, and that'll work better. So now we are ready to go. At this point, this is probably done. So again, it might be easier to just use your hands. And should I show you maybe one more time so that you can see, is I put that little bit of butter on, and then I wipe off a lot of it. In fact, sometimes with a nonstick pan, doing it once is enough. And the big thing about crepes is that it's not like it's a complicated dish to make. You throw a bunch of stuff in the blender. The big thing is getting the technique down. So big thing, heat no more than medium. Get a pan that works, and nonstick is best. And then make sure that the pan is hot enough before you put the batter on. And what you're really listening for is a nice little gentle sizzle. Okay, that time was just perfect. I could really hear it. And then put on more or less batter, depending upon whether you want a bigger one or a smaller one. And then you see I'm moving my wrist and just gradually, patiently letting that crepe go around the pan. And don't worry if it's not a perfect circle. It's going to get rolled up anyway. So anyway, well, good. So I hope that works. And then, like I say, while you are making the crepes, this is a really good time to jump ahead in the recipe, and you'll see that you're going to want to have some parsley to put on top, add some really nice color. This could also be a good time. I've got my broccoli over here. I could turn that on and let it start cooking so it's ready when all the crepes are done. this is a good time. If you haven't tasted your filling, go ahead and taste it. Oops. I can see that mine has kind of gotten a little dry. It's begun sticking to the bottom of the pan, so I'm going to lose a lot of flavor there. So this is a good time to test it. See if you think it needs a little more wine. See if you think it needs salt and pepper. Go ahead and do that. Don't put in too much liquid at this point, though. You won't have a chance to cook it down. Taste your sauce. See if it needs some salt and pepper, more cayenne, a little more sage. And now you should be about ready to go. So let's see. That's not moving around, but you can see that it's lifting up fine. But can you see how that could go a little bit longer? Because like this part here is not quite set. It's still just a little bit still like batter. Okay. And now, so let me now that I've described it all, and hopefully you can see how this comes together. And then to assemble them, you'll just put the filling in there. Don't put too much because then it piles out all over the place. Put the sauce on top and then the parsley, of course. So I think that's an easy part. But can I get some feedback about
Can you show what a finished one would look like to the camera?
Oh, sure. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Exactly. Let's see. I'll just put it here. Okay. So I would lay my crepe down, and then I wouldn't put more than, if this is about a 5-inch crepe, so I'm putting one sizable spoonful of the filling, and then rolling it up, and then you want to roll it over so that the seam side is down. And then my sauce has gotten nice and thick, which is a good thing because then it won't mush out the crepe too bad. So I put a little bit of sauce on, and there's our parsley on top. So there we go. Can you see that okay? Okay. All right. So good. So let me know, how are things going? Now I can see that my crepe is flopping around in the pan. That gives me an idea that it's ready to be flipped. Let that other side cook. It doesn't take long, maybe 30 seconds, and it's ready to go. Okay, so there we go. I'm sorry we did run a little bit over, but I'm really happy to answer any questions. Has anybody got any feedback about how did your crepes go? Were you able to make them? And any problems?
Mary, this is Katie Keener.
Okay, Katie.
I'm using a cast iron. I know you said something about what to do in a cast iron, and I can't remember. Can you say again what the strategy should be?
Yeah, for that, you're probably going to need to put the butter in every time.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you tried to make one yet, Katie?
Yeah, I did, and it was fine. But
Yeah, but just try to do that. Probably, do it every time.
Okay. And do you think they'll cook longer in a cast iron than a nonstick?
You're asking if the crepe takes longer to cook in the cast iron?
Yes.
It shouldn't. Once your cast iron pan gets up to heat, it may be that, cast iron takes a lot longer than this. Is just a real little light pan. So cast iron would take a lot longer to get up to the right heat.
Okay, thanks.
Has your pan been cooking quite a while? I mean, have you been heating it up for quite a while?
Yeah, I think it's getting there.
Okay, yeah. And if you can be patient and let it get to that point, I would, because your crepes just come out. It's so much easier to cook them when they get up to that good temperature.
Sure.
Thank you. Good. Okay, has anybody had any other insights, or like did you like your filling? And
Hi, Mary. It's Christine. I love the filling. You know me, mushrooms and onions.
we talked about you. You maybe weren't here, Christine, but
I did. I heard that.
You loved them.
I really like the buckwheat. I really like that. And I've actually never made crepe, so this was really good for me to learn. So
excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
And did you like the bean sauce on top?
Yeah, that's really creative.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of a fun way to get more nutrients into your diet,
Yeah. So lovely. Yeah, great.
All righty. Well, I'm glad. I'm
It's
glad.
really
Thanks,
good.
Mary.
You're so welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And like I'm saying, I'm happy to stay on for any more questions or comments or anything.
Mary, we have a question or comment.
Yes.
So my mom accidentally just got, sorry, not oat flour. She got gluten-free flour only, and it's coming out a little rubbery. Do we think it's just because she just got the gluten-free flour?
Did you say gluten-free oat flour?
No, sorry. We didn't get the oat. We just got gluten-free flour.
Ashley, look on the package and see what are the flours that are in there. Oh, by the way, I just have to show you, my pan is finally getting up to heat, and so now I'm getting this really nice browning on them. So, yeah, Ashley, what are the flours?
Rice flour and tapioca starch.
Yeah,
tapioca, right?
Yeah, that could maybe be it. What did you think was the problem? You thought they were kind of rubbery?
It's like rubbery. It's a little rubbery. I think maybe she used a little too much butter as well.
Did you use the batter?
Okay.
Oh, better. Well, Ashley, I mean, if you look at my crepes too, they're they're kind of rubbery. It's kind of a good way. That means they're also flexible, so they can be rolled.
Yeah, it might just be that they're also a little thin. So.
Well, Ashley, did you guys taste them yet?
We have not. I'm sure they taste fine.
Well, yeah. Rice flour can be just a little bit grainy sometimes. Okay. So if you don't like that, I mean, next time we want to try a different flour.
Yeah, we accidentally picked up. That's all.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It should be fine. But well, let's feedback after you've had a chance to taste it. But I think you're doing just fine. And if you feel like it's too thin, just add that extra 1 or 2 tablespoons of flour and let's see how that goes.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Ashley, how did everything else? Were you able to make the filling and everything?
Yeah, it's really good. We added the ground turkey as well. So we're excited.
Oh, I would like to hear from anybody who added the meat, whether you liked having some meat in there.
Hey, Mary, it's Christine.
Yeah.
I did add some turkey, and I liked it. I think you were right about only about half a pound. That worked. And how did you handle leftovers? Like, can you make crepes or not?
Yeah, actually, there's a couple ways you can do it. A lot of the recipes will tell you that, like, you can just stack them up here and then wrap them tightly and put them in the fridge, and they'll be fine the next day. A lot of times what I do, though, because I like them warm, is I'll just put the batter in the fridge and then just make them over a couple days.
Okay.
But either way, and I think you can even freeze them.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, we got to take care of Donna.
Yes. Oh.
Sorry, I forgot about you. So in case anybody's left on, if you want to hear what we're doing with Donna, Donna, I do have to kind of laugh at your expense, though, because Donna a couple days ago said, well, I guess I don't like mushrooms. They are mushroom crepes. So, but it's no problem because it actually gives us an opportunity to do something different. So Donna's didn't like the mushrooms, so I said, well, what about spinach? And she liked that idea, but they ended up with a package of both spinach and kale. And Donna, is it baby kale?
Yes, they're baby kale and baby spinach.
Okay, and that's important because kale, if it was mature kale, it would take a lot longer to cook than spinach. And so you wouldn't want that combination. But if it's baby kale, it will cook pretty quickly. Okay, so turn your onions back on, and we're going to
we have.
Pardon?
We have.
Okay, good.
We turned the pan back on because we were hoping.
Yeah, you're hoping somebody would pay attention to you. And so what we're going to do then is we're going to put that spinach in and start cooking it down. And then what we have to decide is that I was thinking it could have been a nice addition to have some sun-dried tomato strips in there. But she didn't have any, but she does have this sun-dried tomato paste. So Donna, what we need to decide is, do you want to try a little bit of the sun-dried tomato paste and with some broth.
Okay.
And we could do it, we could add that now because that will help your spinach cook down. But not too much.
So we haven't put the spinach in yet. Should we
Okay.
do that?
Yeah, go ahead. We're just experimenting here. And then mix it with but not much broth because spinach is a very waterlogged vegetable and we don't want it to be sog out our crepes. So maybe just a couple tablespoons of broth. Just
tablespoons?
A couple tablespoons of broth and then maybe 1 tablespoon of the sun-dried tomato paste because I imagine it's pretty intense.
Okay.
You could just kind of mix that together on the bottom of the pan with a fork to blend it together.
Okay, in the pan.
Well,
Do the spinach first or put it in the
thing? And then, do you all think do you think you'd like to try the olives in there?
Yeah.
Okay. Are they sliced olives or chopped or what? Are they, Donna, are they sliced already?
Yes, sliced.
Okay. Do you think that would be good or would you like them chopped a little bit to distribute the flavor out? I don't know how much. How much do you like olives?
We like them a lot.
Okay. Well, we're going to start small anyway. And then if you decide that it'd be better to have them chopped so they spread through the dish better, we'll do that. But we'll start with them. Okay, so is your spinach cooking?
Oh, Mary?
Yes, go ahead, Vince.
We have this bowl heaping high with spinach. That seems like an awful lot in that pan.
Do you know, did you get it in the one of those pre-washed containers?
Yeah.
Yes.
How many ounces was it?
Well, you
My
told
weight.
us 8 to 10 ounces, and so
Yeah.
Vince
Ounces.
weighed out.
My weight.
Was it like, did you get about 8 to 10?
Just wanted to
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Vince, it cooks down quite a bit. So yes, if it was 8 to 10 ounces, I would put that in.
Okay.
We're going to keep you healthy, Vince. And then, Donna, did you get the tomato sauce in there?
Yes, the tomatoes in there and a couple of tablespoons of chicken broth.
Okay. And then you've got your olives going?
Yeah, I'm chopping them now.
Okay.
Where's my phone?
I will in a minute. But, here, get a fork.
I'll be the taste tester.
Oh, please do. You can have all you want. I mean, we got tons. Maggie's just going to try too. Many thanks to Maggie for helping out here, and Emery and Eric both. Okay.
Hey, Mary, it's Lisa.
Yeah, Lisa.
I ended up adding another tablespoon of the red
Karen dropped off.
cooking wine.
Okay, good. Good.
And I kind of went rogue and I put you said something about cheese, but we're cheese freaks over here, so I added some mozzarella cheese to my sauce.
Oh, Lisa, I'm glad you did, because you know what? I was thinking for people, especially people who are low carb and don't want the beans, you could definitely thicken it with cheese instead. Or that was a great addition. You put mozzarella cheese.
Yeah, in the sauce.
Good. Did you taste it before and after? How do you like it?
Yeah, I really like it. It's cheesy and gooey, and my crepe looks more like a burrito, but that's okay too.
That's fine. That's fine. And then did you think that was enough cooking wine with just 2 tablespoons total?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what did you think of it, Lisa? Because I haven't used cooking wine for a long time. Did you think that it was kind of salty, or did you like the flavor?
No. I tasted it before I put it in, and it kind of just tasted like vinegar with, a little different flavor than like wine vinegar, but
uh-huh.
It wasn't as tangy as vinegar.
Right. Did it taste kind of salty, did you think?
I didn't think so.
Okay.
And I'm surprised because I'm not a real salt person. Like,
Yeah.
I prefer no salt, and then my partner's always saying it's bland. You need to add the more salt.
Yeah. Well, and we didn't add any other salt.
You need any more?
So.
There's more if you want. Yeah. Okay.
So thank you, Mary. That was fun.
Oh, good. Okay, well, good. And so are you happy with it?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know. I haven't I haven't eaten a whole one. It's sitting here. I'm going to take a picture of it. So.
Oh, please do. And then Lisa, one other thing you might try is just squeeze a little, if you have some lemon, squeeze a little lemon on a piece and see how you like that.
Yeah. I did try it. Like I stuck a mushroom inside like a little bowl with a little bit of lemon juice, and that was really good too. So.
Okay, good. Oh, good. I'm so glad. I'm really proud of everybody. They did such a great job. And now we just got to get poor Donna and Vince taken care of. How's your spinach going?
The spinach is really cooking down quite a bit, and so Vince is back there stirring it up.
Okay. So now, do you think you're at the point? You may want to add a little bit of salt, though. Well, no. Let's hold off because you've got the sun-dried tomato paste and the olives. So let's hold off. Maybe a little bit of pepper, though. You could add. Is it cooked down enough that we could start tasting?
It's getting close.
Okay. Do you have a tasting bowl and plate out?
Getting there.
Okay.
Hey, Mary.
Is anybody?
It's Ashley. We just wanted to say thank you. The boys came down for the meal because it smelled good.
Oh, that's a good sign. Well,
We're going to serve up now.
What's that?
We're going to serve up now.
Okay, well, good. I'm so glad you could join, and let me know. Let me know what you think.
Okay, we will. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Has anybody complimented Vince on his Zabar's apron yet?
Oh, no. Look at this, honey.
Vince, my dad had the same apron growing up. That's a wonderful Zabar's apron. My parents just sent us a quarantine gift basket.
Okay, I'm going to get a gallery view. What are we looking at here?
Vince's apron.
Oh, Vince's apron.
Zabar's, and that's my mug too. So.
Oh my God!
Years ago, I used to order coffee beans from Zabar's before you could buy coffee beans on every street corner. So I'd have them mail order from Zabar's in New York City, and at some point I got this apron.
Looks great.
Thank you.
Great. That's great. I love the synchronicity there, Sam.
You bet, Mary.
Okay. So, Donna, can we start tasting yours?
Yes, it tastes good.
Okay. Well, now what I want you to do is take a little bowl, though, and put some in it and try it with the olives.
What's that?
I want you to put a little bit in a bowl and try it with some olives.
Yeah, I tasted it and it's very good.
Did you already put the olives in?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Do you think it could use more sun-dried tomato paste?
I think it's going to be enough because the sauce came out a little salty. So I think that we're going to, the mix will be good just the way it is.
What do you think would it benefit from a little red wine cooked in there?
What do you think, honey?
I haven't tasted it. I'm always in favor of wine.
Wine and coffee beans, huh? You're going to need to let that cook down just a little. Put just a little on the side, Donna, and just taste it with just a little bit in there.
What's that?
I was going to say, just put a little on the side and taste it with a little bit and see if you like that.
A little bit of red wine?
Yeah. But you already put it in? It's okay.
No, I didn't put any wine in.
You might want to just try a little bit
It's
on
not open yet.
Try a little bit on the side, see how you like that. And if you like it, you know, put in just a 1/4 cup, but then you're going to have to cook it down a little bit.
Okay.
You know, maybe 5 minutes. And then I hope your spinach doesn't get overcooked. Does it look okay?
It's getting a little dry, but it'll be good with the wine, I guess.
Okay. Well, and Donna, you don't have to add the wine. You don't have to try it if you don't want to.
You want to skip it then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to skip it.
Okay. That's fine. And then the only other thing that, you know, the only other option you said is that you had some slivered almonds. So you can try, Emery, when she made it, she put the nuts on top.
Oh, okay.
So you could try, if you wanted, to put some almonds on top and see how you like that flavor. They're not quite together. I'm not sure it's bad if you want some.
Okay, we'll give it a try.
Okay, will you let us know how it goes?
Yes. Yeah, and I think we're going to sign off and do that because I have a book group in 15 minutes.
Go for it.
I'm going to go.
Okay.
All right, thanks so much.
This is Mel, my first
Mel.
crepe. Hey, great class. My first crepe looked horrible. Granted, it was my first crepe I ever made. However, my second, third, and fourth looked awesome. So.
Can I see them?
Yeah.
Show off.
Yeah, Mel.
I know, right?
Hey.
Dark.
Oh, I can't see it. Oh, there it is. Okay.
It's just dark against the
Pretty
black
dark.
pan.
Yeah. Oh, Mel, I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
And did you taste your filling with the meat in it? What'd you think?
Yeah, it was good. I think, so I have a protein-rich diet, as my friends like to say, and I went against your words and put more chicken in there, and I think you were right. It probably made it a little bit too dry, but it's super good. It's still very, very good.
Yeah, and the thing I was worried about is that, you know, this is all about the mushrooms. And if it gets too much chicken, then you just got too much chicken and on the mushroom.
Exactly what happened. So I know for next time, it wasn't your fault, it was mine. So
no, that's good. Actually, I'm kind of glad because I've not made it. I'm going to make it tonight with some chicken burger. So I want to, I'm glad to have all the feedback on the meat because I kind of wondered how that would work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, Mel, I'm so glad you could join us.
Yeah, thanks. Great class.